Final Boy Status is a podcast about scary movies and the stuff that happens in them. The entire horror genre is generally frightening and disturbing, so if you're a kid, be sure to ask your parents if it's okay for you to listen. Or don't. You'd probably be cooler if you didn't ask for their permission. But then again, I won't tell you how to live your life. Also, we will be discussing spoilers during this podcast, so don't say we didn't warn you.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Final Boy Status. It's us. Let's get something out of the way just real quick. I'm gonna feel weird if I don't talk about this.
Yeah.
This is my first time hosting.
He is the host.
I'm large and in charge.
Yeah. It is a treat. It is a succulent treat.
So for you guys out there, fans of the show, God bless you for being fans of the show. You will be very surprised to hear that it is me, Luke Haueter, hosting this week's episode. And as always, I am joined by two incredibly handsome men who are deep. They're not over there. They're not.
They're not in the kitchen.
Vincent? You talking about Vincent?
I'm always talking about Vincent in a way.
Yeah, true.
But today I'm talking about Lance and Lappin and Adam Bone are here. Say
Hey.
hello, boys.
Hey,
Hello,
what's
boys.
up, guys? Hello.
Oh, very good.
I do what I'm told. Good little boy.
I'm full of regret. Well, welcome back. We have a treat for you guys. So, we did a double header right out the gate, which is a fun way to start the season. But we were all a little underwhelmed by those movies. So
Yeah.
we picked one that we were just super psyched to talk about.
Yeah.
We picked the incredible classic Jaws. Do you want to intro
yeah.
the movie for us a little bit, Lanson?
Yeah, heck
Sure.
yeah. So, Jaws, the 1975 classic, little known film that kind of put a small director on the map. You may have heard of him, Steven Spielberg. I don't know, just throwing names out there. But yeah, basically a bare bones sort of introduction and premise to the movie is you have a small isolated oceanside community called Amity Island that gets plagued by a man-eating great white shark. And so you have the sheriff and a bunch of other people who are trying to figure out how to solve this problem, which is the shark. It's a great adventure / man versus nature / comedy action movie. It's a good time.
Yeah, a little bit of horror mixed in there too, which is why we get
Heck
free
yeah.
claim to this. We get to do it.
Yeah.
That's the basics. It's a shark attack movie where they got to take down a shark. So I feel like let's just start with our general opinions of the movie, right? Go around the table. Let's start with Adam.
Sure. It feels weird giving thoughts on this movie as a review, seeing that I feel like anything I say has been said 1,000 times. You know what I'm saying? Like, this movie is great. I love it. It's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorites. And watching it, like, I feel like every time I watch it, I just like it more. Yeah, I don't even know where to start with it, but I think that just the three acts are very compelling, where, you know, you got the first where you don't ever see the shark really. It's just like people just dying, and the suspense and the way the camera works in the first act is really cool to me, where it's just really teasing the shark, and then the second act you get a little look at it, and then the third act it's there, and I don't know, it's a really cool horror movie in that the suspense of not seeing the creature till the end. I think it does a really good job, and it's really scary. I don't know, it's a great movie.
So I guess starting with just like your general opinion, rating it out of 13, where does it land?
Yeah, this is tough. It's hard to sit here and think of any faults about the movie. I mean, it never drags. It's constantly intriguing to me. all the characters act the way the characters should act. The mayor is a little funky in some of his decisions.
Sure.
But, you know, he's the antagonist. He's the bad guy. Like, it's to be expected. I don't
Right.
want to fault the movie on that.
Well, and I'm gonna get into that. I got stuff
Okay.
going on in my
Heck
head.
yeah.
We'll throw the
Heck
ball
yeah.
in Luke's court when it gets there. But honestly, I'm gonna give it a 12 out of 13. I think it is
Dang.
a great horror movie. I think it's one of the best. I'm not giving it a 13 because, you know, I always believe there's room to grow.
Sure. Yeah. You hear that, Steven Spielberg? You got room to grow, buddy.
I
We
don't
got
know,
space.
man. Like, you're doing pretty good, but there's always the next level. You
Could
know,
be-
you
could
just
be better.
gotta be looking to level
You
up.
know?
Right, and I guess right on the heels of that, in terms of scary out of 13, how would you rate this movie for our audience members if they want to gauge
Yeah.
where this movie's at?
I think this movie is a good horror movie because it is so much more than just a horror movie. Like you said, there's comedic aspects, there's adventure aspects, there's action aspects. So the movie isn't constantly scary. It's not. There's not this constant dread. I mean, in some ways there is, but it is a lot of different things. So I don't think it's the scariest movie ever made, but I think the scenes where there is suspense and there is fear of death and there's
Yeah.
the shark, it's very scary. So out of 13, I'm gonna give it a 9.
Nice.
boom.
It's going up on the charts there, but again, it's not reaching Hereditary levels of just after
Yeah.
you're done, just looking behind your shoulder, looking in the rearview mirror, see what's going on.
mom on the ceiling again?
Especially,
get down.
Mom, please.
No.
especially living in landlocked Utah, where
Right.
we're far
Yeah.
from any ocean, it's
Yeah.
like there's no real threat to me right
True.
now.
That's interesting because this is like the movie where I remember my mom telling me about seeing this movie and then being like scared of the bathtub. Like
Oh, dang, yeah.
like any
source
body
of
of
water.
water was suddenly
Has she
terrifying.
not seen Ghostbusters 2? Because that made me scared of the bathtub.
I don't remember what happens in the bath.
There's this like
The
sludge,
ooze,
the
yeah,
ooze that comes from
from
the
that
bathtub,
one
tries to
dude
eat the
when she's-
baby.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, jeez.
It's a terrifying scene.
We talk about bathtub baby scenes. I'm just thinking about A Beautiful Mind.
Oh my gosh, that one also. Gosh dang.
Oh boy,
Whoa.
good way to raise the anxiety levels a bit. Of course, we got to take it over to Lanson.
Yes.
What's your general vibe? What are you feeling?
Yeah, so this is a movie. I feel like it's a movie of firsts for me because this is one of the first movies that I watched where I can remember being really, really scared and
way.
understanding the plot and understanding, what was happening. Of course, in my little 6 or 7 year old mind, but so there's that aspect for me that makes it quite a memorable experience, as well as, there's a lot of firsts as well. You got first major movie for Steven Spielberg. This is the movie that established the whole summer blockbuster. Before Jaws, you really didn't have that.
Right.
So I think that's worth noting and really does understand. Even if you haven't seen the movie, you at least understand or have some recognition of the title Jaws, So
this isn't a movie you escape. Not at all.
Yeah.
Like you right now, if you have never seen this movie, you're still painfully aware of this movie.
You could
Yeah.
hum the theme
You
right
could hum
now.
the theme
Yeah.
song right now.
It's
Yeah,
just so
crazy.
iconic in
Yeah.
every way.
Yeah, so there's a lot to be said for, obviously, Adam pointed a really good point out where, you don't see a lot of the shark. There's a lot of suspense, which I really like, in horror movies or just movies in general, when you can be, I feel like less is more, especially when you're dealing with a monster or an antagonist. The less you see and the more you can build it up in your imagination really is great. And everybody in the cast, Roy Scheider, Richard Dreyfuss, Robert Shaw, Lorraine Gary, all of them give great performances. So it's not just, a movie that's eclipsed by the shark, which is obviously the star, but you have so many great performances that tether this movie to kind of also allow the audience to kind of have that experience as well. So overall, out of 13, I would give this movie, I would match Adam. I would say it's a 12 out of 13 for me.
Nice.
Very nice. And like, again, rating it for scary, so maybe some of our more squeamish viewers have an
Yeah.
expectation set. How would you rate it then?
Oh, geez. Yeah, I'm, as far as if you're squeamish, this really goes for it. So it's definitely got some good gore in there. I think something for me, this is a personal fear I have, like I'm a good swimmer, I know how to swim, but like being out in the open ocean is something that really puts me at unease, and I think really benefits this movie because the ocean is like, geez, it's like another planet. You know, as a human being, you're not built in the same capacity to be able to exist in that environment. So I would give this I'd match Adam again and give it a 9 out of 13 for me.
Oh, bang. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you gentlemen like make amazing points. This movie is as revered as it is for a reason. It's incredibly well made. It's and the camera work you were talking about. I could spend hours talking about some of the shots in this movie. Like at the very beginning when they're on the barge and they're having like their little town meeting in the barge, and Steven Spielberg's like smart enough to know that movement within the frame is enough to keep things interesting because that's just locked off. It doesn't move. But you have the barge itself moving, which creates an interesting flow in the background. And then you slowly have like the actors getting closer and closer to the camera. And that whole scene was just so brilliant. The acting, of course, can't be overlooked. I made the comment during the movie when it's sort of when it's a movie that's like fun, like Happy Death Day, we talk so much during the movie.
Yeah.
A movie like this, which is so good, we're just dead silent like the whole movie. Robert Shaw's big monologue, 1,100 men went into the water, 310 men came out of the water. That monologue, he's giving it, and I look over at these two guys, and all three of us are just glued. Like we can't look at anything else. We can't say anything. We're just consumed. So to rate this movie, I'm gonna go right there with you guys. I'm gonna say a 12 out of 13, just generally.
Heck yeah.
Across the board.
Yeah, I'll give it that. In terms of scary, I mean, it's really good at building the suspense when it wants to, but I would also I do want to point out that part of what's so cool about this movie is it's willing to build that tension, and it's also willing to just bring it right back down. It's willing to get you really worked up, but then it's willing to have a scene where you're fully relaxed. And it's not the kind of horror movie where it waits for you to be relaxed and then scares you.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I'd give it a 9. I feel like this is a pretty good starter horror movie where there's some stuff to be scared of for sure. But there's nothing that's going to hit you like way too hard. Again, it's not like a Hereditary where it's
the entire movie you're on.
Where it's like, is that a decapitation? Like,
Oh boy,
you're able to take a load off and you're able to breathe. So I'm going to go slightly lower, and I'm actually going to put it at an 8.
Nice.
Okay. But it's incredibly effective at what it tries to do.
Absolutely, for sure. Absolutely.
So I mean, like right out the gate, let's just jump into it. This is the stuff you come here for. I guess my first time hosting, small mess up here. I should tell you, this is the show where we figure out how you get out of a horror movie alive. I mean, we've all done it. We've all just hung out like with our friends after watching a scary movie, and we're like, if the person in the movie did this, I bet they could have gotten away.
Yeah.
And we're all about that. We're all about taking a look at the killer, seeing what they're all about, and we're all about looking at the victims, seeing how they could step up their game, and we're all about figuring out how to get out alive.
And how we would do it.
Right.
As the most average of Joes. How we would survive better or worse.
We gotta have like t-shirts designed or something that say the most average of Joes. I feel like
we are, yeah.
I feel like that's us. So, I mean, right in those lines, let's jump in. We've talked about this movie. It's a classic. We have nothing but good things to say about it. Now let's talk about probably the most famous part of this movie, which is, of course, the shark itself.
Yeah. This is a fun killer to talk about because it's so, I don't know, it's such a ominous presence. I mean, if we like just to jump into the strengths it has the entire ocean.
Yeah.
Where it's basically masked, or what's a better word? It's lost in the ocean to where you can't see it until it's attacking, in the process of attacking. So it has the element of surprise. It's a big ass shark, bigger than anything anyone's seen. It's and it's got the it's got people to feed on with the stuff that the mayor's going on. There's people in the ocean, And so honestly, this is a force to be reckoned with more than I think anything we've talked about before.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, especially being in a place, not to jump to the victims, but thinking about it as a strength for him. It's in its element. It's in the ocean.
Yeah.
I think humans, it's just that's not where we're meant to be. Did you say that, Lanson, earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just not we're not fish people.
Right.
Well, and I mean, like, it's been said kind of famously, I think, that we know more about outer space than we do about the ocean.
Absolutely.
Right. It's just such a big question mark.
Yeah. And I feel like we also have to point out, along those lines of we don't fully understand the ocean, they make a point of saying in the movie, this shark behaves atypically.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, Richard Dreyfuss plays a shark expert. I can't remember the name of the character offhand, even though we just watched the movie. But he makes a not Quint, but very nice try.
Matt Hooper.
Matt Hooper. That's right.
That's not Richard Dreyfuss.
But he and Clint, Robert Shaw, they both make a point of saying to the police chief, to Roy Scheider, they both say, like, I've never seen this before.
Right.
Roy Scheider says, like, do they normally do this? And he's like, no.
Yeah.
Well, like, at the very end when it starts circling and just attacking him over and over again, they're flabbergasted. So
Right.
Another really important thing to point out about this shark is it's not something where necessarily knowledge is going to help, because Matt Hooper is a shark expert. He studied it his entire life,
Right.
and he's totally flummoxed. He's like, I can't believe the shark is doing this right now. Like, this is
Right.
crazy.
Yeah.
And I mean, in some ways that might come across as a little cheap in a movie if it was done poorly, but the way this movie is executed, it's so you're totally cool with it. There are some movies where it would be like, I've never seen a shark do this before, and you're like, okay.
I think the reason behind that is because it sets up Hooper as a character to trust, because he comes in and he's like, everybody's wrong about the shark. The shark that you caught is not the right shark. And so he is the expert that we begin to trust. But then once he says that, then we get scared.
Right.
And I think that's why it was executed well, because it gave us time to trust the character as the expert. And so,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, what else is there to say about the shark? I mean,
it's a shark.
and this is like one of the scariest things too. Like we talked, I mean, it wasn't a part of this podcast, but we once did a very long podcast breaking down the movie Halloween.
Yes.
And one of the things we talked about is how scary it is when there's a killer who has no reason to kill. They just kill.
Yeah.
Because that's sort of the case of Michael Myers. And I think that's something that's really interesting about this shark too, is that, like, they kill, they have to eat, they're gonna do that occasionally, but especially towards the end of the movie, it seems to be purely just like territorial, like, revenge story. It's like, oh, you shoot me with a harpoon, I'm gonna F up your life.
Right.
And so I think that's something that I would say about, like, this shark is it's truly hard. I don't think you could understand it. Even if you broke it down to the base level of what does this shark want, I have no idea what the shark wanted at the end of the movie. I think it just wanted to eat those guys. I think it was just
got
like
pissed off.
It was just like vengeful at the end.
Right.
And I think that's something that's really important about the killer is if you try to understand them, sometimes you need to break it down to that base level of why are they killing. And the shark doesn't necessarily have a reason. It's just something to do, maybe.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely worth noting. I mean, we have to bring up the fact that it's a fucking behemoth. The thing is huge.
25 feet long and 3 tons.
I love. He just says that, and we as an audience are like, "Oh, okay. That's accurate.
Yeah.
That's a big guy. That's a big boy.
We don't question that. We're like, yeah, of course it's that big.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, that, like, when they first see him proper, the very famous that very famous scene with the "you're gonna need a bigger boat."
Right.
Which, by the way, the funniest part about maybe a tangent, but man, the chief does not back off of that statement at all. Even like as the scene is fading out, he's yelling at Clint, "We gotta go back to the harbor. We gotta get a bigger boat."
He's still on that. He's like, what are we doing?
It's not just a snappy one-liner. He's being so serious.
Right. Right.
So I don't know, Lanson. I think I think you might have something interesting to say about this shark.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was actually a really fun movie to research, especially when it comes to, I mean, this is kind of the movie that kicked off a lot of people's interests in the ocean and sharks. And I mean, geez, in the 1970s, we knew, it's not like we know a ton now. We know more for sure, but in the 1970s, our knowledge of sharks was very limited. So just to kind of profile the killer of the shark, just to kind of throw some facts at you guys, just about like an average everyday great white that is not 25 feet long.
I'll take it.
You know,
let's hear about it.
Yeah. So a great.
Do you happen to know what the average size is of a great white shark?
Yeah. So for females, it is 15 to 20 feet long, and then for males, it is 13 to 15 feet long. So. And then for
you guys know, okay, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
You guys know that like meme thing right now of like the tall vampire lady from apparently Shark Boys are all about the tall vampire ladies. They want a giant mate, and I get it. I get it, by the way. If that vampire lady showed up and was like, "I'm gonna smother you to death," I'd be like, "Please."
Oh no!
Oh, I'm so afraid.
To quote Adam Michael Bone, "What is it? My birthday?"
Shoot.
I'm sorry.
You're totally good, man. But yeah, so just to give you a perspective of the largest shark, great white, that was ever recorded in 1959 in Australia, it was 19.5 feet long and was nearly 4,000 pounds. So obviously this guy is abnormally large and abnormally gifted, physically.
He went to Charles Xavier's school.
He's gifted.
Shark man.
He's got a thing.
Shark boy. He's grown up.
He's getting revenge for the death of Lava Girl.
It's curtains for everybody.
You got it.
But yeah, so an interesting thing about great whites is their sense of smell is so good that they can track and find a colony of seals that's been recorded to be over 2 miles away. As well as most sharks, and specifically great whites, have these sensors in their snouts that allow them to pick up any sort of electric current just of anything that's living in the water, and especially when something living does move in the water, that amplifies that electrical current that they can find. So that's why a lot of times people be like, punch the nose of the shark, which I don't know if that's really a thing. I've never had that happen.
Didn't the Mythbusters try that?
Oh, they probably did.
Sounds like something they would.
Yeah, I think they looked. I don't remember I don't know why I brought it up because I don't remember the outcome. But I think if you're really interested, check out an episode of Mythbusters.
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
gonna do that.
Heck yeah.
We'll all do that. Just right after this, we're just gonna sit down and watch Mythbusters.
For sure. Yeah, and just one final thing that I found to be really cool that was along with the facts of how great whites hunt and in this movie is you see a lot of the camera angle panning up or going up towards the victim, and that's actually how great whites hunt, is that they will be deep underwater where you can't see them, and then they will breach and come at you vertically. And sometimes, if they're hunting like a seal, they'll come straight out of the water, bite down just to disorient and get back in the water. So, yeah, I mean, these things are fast. In like a sprint burst, they can move 40 miles an hour in the water. So,
jeez,
wow.
It's definitely a movie that I really like, especially in the sense of, I feel like on this podcast, we've probably done it before, but this is definitely a very glaring example of man versus nature, where you have something that is, the design of a shark is the same that it was 60 million years ago that it is today. They're dinosaurs that we have on the earth and the ocean. So it almost seems like an insurmountable foe with so many advantages in its element. So,
to speak, were you done with that?
No, yeah,
thought?
that was it.
Cool. Didn't mean to cut you off at the end
good.
there, but I think one thing.
But what's interesting is
Lance and I will cut off.
So anyway,
why are you threatening Lanson? I did it.
Lanson, shut up.
I'm so abused on this podcast, guys. Help me. Adam's the real monster.
He makes us share a bedroom.
Sorry, a little phased here. I am going to take a crack because I feel like we have to at a weakness of the shark.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And my submission to this topic is we deal with a lot of ghost movies and supernatural movies
Right.
where their power and influence is ambiguous, where
Right.
you're like, what could they do? Could they
Sure.
just kill me just like that and that's
Right.
it? Like probably. So I think the fact that this is not a supernatural entity, it's
Sure.
flesh and blood, it's an animal, it has animal instincts, it can be, even though it is abnormal, it isn't supernatural.
Right.
And I think that is as a comparison to other movies we've watched, is definitely a point of weakness where it can be blown up, it can be shot,
Right,
it can
yeah.
be harpooned.
Yeah.
So it's
Right.
a malleable object that can be harnessed with great power and great struggle, but it's not this ambiguous force that lives and might kill you
Right.
through
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, the rules are pretty clear.
Yeah.
I mean, it's even something as simple as famously, if a shark stops moving forward, they drown. Like they can't go backwards; they can only go forwards.
Yeah.
And Quint even towards the end is like, we just drive it into shallow waters, make it so it can't turn around, and it drowns.
Right.
So it's like, it is a creature of flesh and blood. Like it abides by the same rules we all do. It just happens to be a behemoth.
Right.
It's just a big boy.
Just a big old, just
thick
a
boy.
thick boy.
Thick boy.
So
Beefy boy.
thick with those black eyes.
Doll's eyes.
A doll's eyes. No, and you're absolutely right to like point that out. It's not insurmountable, obviously not, because they do defeat it.
He
Right.
blows it
Yeah.
up.
And I mean, I feel like this is kind of an interesting point to transition into talking about the characters in the movie, the victims, the
Yeah.
people who go face to face with this shark. I think part of what makes the third act of this movie so cool is we see three intelligent, strong, capable men who every time they're presented with a new problem, like they're very methodical and they're rational and they make good, smart decisions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Obviously, like in everyday life, if you're presented with a problem, like sometimes in horror movies, it's this thing of like, as soon as plan A doesn't work, you're just screwed.
Right.
But that's not how real life works. In real life, if your plan doesn't work, you problem solve. You figure something else out. And it was really refreshing to see these three main characters throughout the third act. That's all they did. Anytime something didn't work, they pivoted to a new idea. And they said, well, now we got to try this. And that was just incredibly satisfying for me, that it wasn't like, we're dealing with a bunch of dum-dums here. Like, we're very clearly dealing with people who just, they know how life works. You gotta handle the problems as they come up. You gotta pivot to new ideas. You gotta pivot to new solutions. And every time something doesn't work, they try something else.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately how they do defeat the shark, is that they just keep trying idea after idea until one works.
Right.
And all three of them, I think it's interesting, are experts in different parts or different fields. So
Right.
Yeah.
you have the brainiac, textbook shark knowledge guy. Then you have the brute force, Quint character who's killed sharks, and then you've
Right.
got the chief of police that's got a personal, I don't really know what you call it, personal vendetta against the shark,
Yeah,
a personal
yeah.
reason to want to
Right.
kill it. So he has that motivation. So all three of those. So when you talk about finding new things, that Quint is doing all of his things, and after he's done, he's like, all right, let's try the cage thing, because I'm all out of
Yeah.
ideas. So they have different pools to pull from, which I think is a great strength for the characters we see a lot. And at the end of the day, the chief of police is the one to pull the trigger because of his sheer willpower and smarts and being.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see that they're all smart and capable, but in three different ways that they pull from, even though there's power struggles and everything
Right.
that happens, which could be seen as a weakness.
Yeah.
The butting heads and trying to be the one in charge to kill it at the end, it was more of a strength, I think.
Yeah.
And not to get like too obviously a big, like, the hook of this podcast is we talk about surviving, so I don't want to spend too much time being like a movie reviewer.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this movie being as good as it is, you have to pause in a couple places and really highlight some things.
Just to appreciate it.
Yeah, and one thing I have to point out is in the hands of lesser actors, that third act would be a real sludge. It would be terrible
It'd be
to watch.
slow and boring.
Yeah, because the third act is literally just three guys on a boat for like 2-3 days.
Pretty much, yeah.
And it's all power struggles, trying to figure out. Yeah, like you said, it's power struggles. It's them like slowly bonding. I mean, there's like a lengthy scene of them just sitting in the dining room together singing.
Yeah.
And you're into it. You're like,
Right.
heck yeah, like they're buddies. It's awesome. But then the next day, like they have more power struggles again. And in the hands of lesser actors, it would feel false. It would feel weird that they have this bonding moment, and then the next day it's right back to like, quit, you're an idiot, and
Right.
shut up, boy. You know,
Right.
and yeah, to not talk about the acting in this movie and not really take a second to appreciate it would be a crime.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, again, just like talking about three very distinct, very smart, very capable people in the hands of incredible actors. And again, I'm going to point out like Quint's monologue, like people make fun of it. Like the version of it that I know more clearly is the one from Master of Disguise where Dana Carvey's dressed as Robert Shaw, 92 kids go into the water, 26 kids come out of the water. The ice cream man, he took the rest. Like it's played up for laughs. It's very silly. But there's a reason why like those parodies exist. It's because it's so good. And like even just looking at for most of the scene, you can see Richard Dreyfuss in the background, and I don't think Richard Dreyfuss is acting at all. He's just like so locked in to what Robert Shaw is doing. And if I was an actor on that set, I'd be the same way. I'd be like, wait, were we filming? Sorry. He was like,
Right.
he was doing something.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like the performances alone are a big reason to check out this movie. I know we kind of casually said earlier, if you haven't seen this movie, here's the rundown. I'm going to say this, like, and we should have said it earlier, see this movie.
It's great.
If you haven't seen this movie, pause this podcast right now, go watch the movie, then come back.
It's PG. It's not too scary.
It's PG. It's totally fine.
Yeah, the 70s. Heck yeah.
Which is like, to clarify, PG, but still pretty intense. I mean, I remember the first time I saw this as like a kid. This is still the thing that sticks out to me, is that second attack, that second death, the kid on the raft.
Yes.
And the blood just...
Yeah, like, because there's all of a sudden just a geyser of blood, and it really sticks with you.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, the first time I saw this, I think I was, I don't know, I must have been like 13, 14. I was a little bit older,
Yeah, I gotcha.
but at the same time, I don't think I fully knew, like, what the movie was going to be. I think I, again, was like, oh, it's PG, like, it doesn't really matter. And when I got to that scene, I literally, like, paused the movie and I, like, walked away. And because I was so upset and I was so shaken by it. And that's genuinely like the power of this movie. I mean, this time, like, I don't think you guys noticed, but during Quint, Robert Shaw, during his death, I started to actually like tear up a little, because I'm referencing back to that monologue where he talks about watching his best friends die and hearing the way that they screamed and seeing the way that they suffered, and his friend that was bitten in half by a shark, and then watching all of those things happen to him in the order he described them in his story. He started with, he started with the whole, like, you hear him scream and you hear like the horrible screams, and then he moves on to like his friend getting like cut in half, and then that happens to him. And it's like what the story he told earlier is happening to him in real time. And I was like tearing up. I was like, oh, no, like, oh my God, like Quint doesn't deserve to go out like this. Like, please let this not happen.
Yeah.
And especially for that to be sort of the final death of the movie, and to be sort of that like climax, is incredibly effective. There isn't a character death in this movie you don't care about.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there isn't one you're going to care about more than Quint.
Right.
I think.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're like 13, 14-year-old me, and you need to full on take like a half-hour break after seeing a little kid erupt in a geyser of blood.
Yeah.
But yeah, this time watching it, like Quinn's death was like, whew, it was really hard to watch.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's just such a scary feeling to imagine yourself just sliding down that.
So
I don't
helpless,
know,
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's terrifying in an empathetic way to be
Right.
like that. Just
Yeah.
sliding into the jaws of a shark. Like,
Yeah.
that's such a scary visual.
Absolutely.
And it's not, and I think another thing that really got to me too is it's not pathetic. It's not like,
No.
it very much is like a man versus nature thing to the end, because he
Right.
pulls out a knife and he's stabbing the shark
Yeah, absolutely.
as it's eating him.
Yeah.
He's like spitting up blood. He's lost his legs at this point, and he's just stabbing it in the head
Yeah.
with everything he's got. It was brutal and kind of hard to watch, but that's like so good
Absolutely.
in such a good way.
Absolutely.
But moving away from critiquing the film itself, back
Yes.
to surviving the movie, back in our lane. We
Yeah.
apologize, but back in our lane.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously we have our three protagonists, but let's expand out a little bit
Yeah.
and start looking for decisions in the movie, places where we would differ, right? Sort of weaknesses within the movie. We've talked about some of the things that the characters are really good with. They problem solve, they pivot, they're willing to work together despite like their differences, because they're very different people.
Yeah.
But now kind of expanding out further, now that we've focused a bit on that third act and everything that happens there, let's go back to like the beginning, and from the beginning on, like assess those decisions, the different people at play there. I don't know. What do you guys make of it? Obviously, like if we were to break it down like death by death, some of the deaths are really avoidable, and some of them are like, I mean, the first death, like
Nothing you
you
can
don't,
do.
yeah, nothing
Yeah.
you can do about that. Like you don't know there's a shark there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So I think this is a good time. I mean, with the second death with Alex Kittner, I believe is his name, Alex, the little boy.
I just remember
boy.
looking in the credits and seeing his name was Jeffrey Voorhees.
Voorhees. Heck yeah, I know.
Just being like, oh man, a little frog boy got eaten by the shark.
Nice and tasty. It was a tasty treat. Amphibious.
Little froggy boy.
But yeah, I mean, you bring up a death that is avoidable. I think, you kind of see the decisions and the bureaucracy of this small town that is much of their economy is fueled by visitors that come during the summer, and much of the community is built around the idea of being very resistant to that, the beaches being closed, not having that revenue stream come through. But I don't know. I mean, as the police chief, as Chief Brody, I think that's just one of those things where you got to be like, I mean, you can't make money if people are dying either. So it's like, what's more important, survival or, financial gain? So I don't know. I mean, that's a decision where obviously, it's easy for me. And obviously this is a fictional movie, but, I feel like I would have wanted to make the stance to kind of put my foot down and be like, that's not a boat propeller like some people are saying and amending the reports that it was that killed that girl. Like, that's a shark, and that's a problem. Like, if we're thinking about this thing isn't going to stop just because we want it to, We're going to have to be better at solving this problem rather than just hoping it doesn't happen again and hoping we got lucky and got the right shark.
Yeah.
And jumping to the decision of something that the movie didn't show that much, and not that it should have or shouldn't have, but I think it would be a factor in real life, is the fact what the shark attacks would do to the publicity of the beach in general. So, like, because there was a moment everyone was scared to go into the water,
Right.
but they all went to the beach, so it's almost like those people going to the beach but are scared of sharks but went to the beach anyways but don't want to
Right.
get into the water. It's kind of weird that they still all showed up. So I feel like if I was a person and they're like, yeah, because they had the TV crew there. It was public knowledge that these deaths had happened and that there was a shark attack that had been like hit another beach. They said it in the movie that there's like, there's the Long Island beach and there's a bunch of other beaches around that people could go to if it was closed, So the fact that people showed up, even though it was public knowledge, and you could tell they were scared because it's just kind of dumb.
Well, don't they even say at some point, I might be making this up, but when they have like the giant like cruise ship full of people coming, don't they say they're here because they heard about the shark and now like they have to see this beach with their own eyes?
Yeah.
I was wondering if that was part of it, but I don't remember specifically.
Yeah,
it seems like it was something that was touched on, maybe.
Right.
But
Yeah, I think we were talking in the middle of it. And
Yeah.
not listening as closely as we could have been.
Sure.
But I think they brought something up about
the publicity was good for it.
yeah, they're like, hey, a kid died, but now people want to come to our beach because it's the shark beach. Like they're intrigued.
See the shark maybe or something. Yeah. That's possible.
True.
So like that is sort of an interesting point. So
But it's idiotic.
Here's going out on like a huge side thing.
Yes.
And like I'm not trying to make this political. I'm just very much just making a statement.
Yeah.
I kept having the overwhelming thought during this movie of like safety versus economy is very like resonant outside of the movie right now because that's what we've been living in. We've been living in a pandemic,
right?
Where it's coming down to like, what do we enforce for health and what do we, and what do we do to save the economy at the same time?
Yeah.
And so it's this thing of like, we watched this movie and maybe like even like 2 or 3 years ago, I would have been like, are you kidding me? Like this mayor won't shut down the beach for, like a month or something. Like that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like just shut everything down and call it a day. But now after like living through the pandemic, I don't want to act like, hey, we're done. It's all over. But like having experienced as much of it as I have, that's a very real thing. People having like those liberties taken away is something that is like a big deal to certain groups of people. And certain groups of people are way more preoccupied with, I want to be able to go to the beach. I want to be able to make money. I want to be able to do this over like making mandates specifically for safety. It got weirdly resonant and was making me like, because of my own personal feelings about like the pandemic and things, it was giving me very visceral reactions to decisions made in the movie and points made in the movie.
Yeah.
Because it's like, like I said, 2-3 years ago, this would have been entertainment, but like now it's like, oh, fuck, this is real.
Right.
This is for real, like things that are happening in real life. And so like, that's the point I'm going to make right now, which is, since we're assessing like how people handle the situation, how like the victims and all this, there are probably people out there in the audience that be like, it makes no sense for the mayor to do that. It makes no sense for the townspeople to do that. And I'm going to just come right back out and say, actually, all those decisions make perfect sense because we've seen the real life equivalent.
Sure.
Maybe you don't think the real life equivalent makes sense either, but at least it shows that people do make those decisions in real life.
Yeah,
and I can't stress enough, I'm trying to say this without an agenda.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to say like there is sort of a one-to-one there of like, if you're saying like, well, a person would never make those decisions in real life, it's like, well, those decisions did get made in real life.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and again, I'm not trying to say I know what the correct thing is.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, it's hard not to feel that a bit, where it's like at various times he's like, well, we'll just open the beach, but we'll have like a shark patrol, and it's like, well, yeah, we've had like versions of that too, where it's like, oh yeah, we shut some things down, but also like that stuff, like,
Sure.
So it's and that's the point. The point I'm trying to make is that a decision like that is incredibly nuanced, and so many people with so many different decisions are involved that from the outside of the movie, it might be easy to look in and be like, these decisions don't make sense.
Yeah.
But again, through like that real life frame of everybody has a different opinion, everybody has a different perspective, and everybody's trying to be heard,
Right.
it starts to make a lot more sense. And you can start to look at this movie and be like, you know what? That's probably not incorrect. That kind of like that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So that was the big thing I wanted to bring up.
Absolutely.
Because I was like, these guys will probably jump on it and be like, man, these guys are dumb.
Right. And that's a good
So
point.
take that.
Take that.
I've outwitted you. Think about it.
Yeah, and I mean, just another decision I think that was great that Chief Brody made is, after, the third attack where that guy in the rowboat ends up, getting killed by the shark and just basically lays down the law to the mayor and is like, hey, man, you're going to sign this. We're going to pay Quint the amount of money he wants. We're solving the problem. We're going to be very direct in getting this done, which I think, either way, you could argue that maybe should have done before, but certainly, like, that was a pivotal moment for that character and for the movie. The characters to kind of get the ball rolling of having the beginning of the end of the shark.
Yeah. I do think and it is interesting to point out that kind of when Matt shows up, what he's saying over and over is he's like, you have two options. You kill it or get abandoned this hunting ground by convincing it there's nothing here. So it showed up. It's had a couple of bites to eat. It's like, hey,
There's
eating's good here. So if they close the beach for a while, eventually it gets bored and leaves, or they can kill it. And I feel like it is sort of weird to me that if there is one thing that's a little bit odd, is that the mayor doesn't want to commit to anything.
Right.
It's like he's given two solutions. It's not a thing of, so again, not a thing of like you shut down completely or sorry. I'm so inarticulate right now. I'm sorry.
You're good.
But like there's two solutions, and it's a little bit silly to me that the mayor keeps just moving forward as if he doesn't have to choose between either.
Right.
Like he's like, we don't need to shut down. We don't need to kill the shark. Nobody worry about it.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, he does for a time think that the shark is dead.
Yeah.
Although, like, again, not to be like super weird about this, but one like super weird and shady thing he does is when Matt is like, we should cut open this shark and make sure this is the right shark. And the mayor's like, I'm not doing that here on the dock. What if it is the shark? We're going to see the remains of a little boy all over the dock, which is a fair point, by the way.
Yeah, for sure.
But also, like, as soon as the sheriff walks away because he's confronted by the mom, the mayor like sidles over and like is like, hey guys, like I want you to hide it here, and then in the morning I want you to get rid of it. I don't want anybody to see it.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, why did you do that? Like,
What's up with that?
just
man?
take it somewhere private and cut
Sure.
it open.
Yeah, if you're gonna be discreet about it.
Right.
Yeah, like if you're worried, if you're really worried, again, that's probably just him. His true motivations is he wants people to think the shark is dead. He doesn't care if this is the actual shark or not.
Right.
So he is being shady. But that was a moment that was like, dude, are you for real? Like, it wouldn't be that big a deal to just wait until everybody goes home, cut open the shark real quick, and be like, yes or no.
Right.
So again, it's a little bit frustrating because there are constantly solutions put in front of him, and every single time he's like, nah.
Nope. Yeah, and that is interesting as well because, without even confirming it, everything's been put out in the paper that they caught the shark, and, like even Chief Brody's wife, when she's talking to Dr. Hooper when he comes over for dinner, she's like, well, everybody on the radio and everybody on the news was saying that they killed the shark, And so for the mayor to allow that information to go forward without confirming that is another very poor choice.
Very disturbing choice, really.
Yeah.
I think in most horror movies you have those moments where you're like, and this is a different tangent by the way, but or a different point. I'm not going on a tangent. This is in line with our conversation. Where you're like, wow, that character really isn't acting under human reaction or is acting against their character, where they're like taking a break and like, okay, I think I lost him. You're like, no, why would you think that? Or they don't double tap is what we always say. They don't double kill. Like things that are that you're yelling at the screen, do this. This movie has very little of those because
Right.
they do make really good decisions and the antagonists have good reason for the most part for what they're doing. The one scene where I didn't get this, and if you guys caught a thing of dialogue that I missed or a reason for this to happen, please correct me. But just on this watch, I thought it was kind of weird in that scene where the names are getting to me. So the main chief of police, the
Brody?
main character, Brody,
Yeah.
and Hooper.
Yeah.
They're in the boat.
Mm-hmm.
It's late at night. They're like, let's go find the shark. And then they go out. They're a little drunk. So like
Right.
that could be a reason. But then they find the ship. They see that it's shipwrecked. He's like, oh, I know this guy. Something obviously awful has happened. And the dude's like, I'm going to go check it out. And he's like, let's go just bring it. Like, let's tow it.
Yeah.
And then we'll take a look at it. He's like, yeah, we'll do that. But
Sure.
I want to check something first.
Yeah.
And then he goes and sees the hole and sees the corpse, which is a really scary scene. But that decision to me is like, why'd you do that?
Yeah.
Like, just tow it back and then look at it. Like, to me, that was the moment where I wanted to yell at the screen, like, don't go in the water.
Right.
Obviously, nothing happened. And I guess another thing, he had all the equipment on his ship. Maybe it
Sure.
would have seen the shark. Maybe he was knowledgeable enough to know that he was safe to go. But in my brain, I was like, the shark attacked this ship.
Yeah.
It's been here maybe recently. Like, you don't know. Like, it was a stupid decision in my limited reference, unless I missed something. But that was the scene in this movie where it was like, don't do that. Like,
Yeah.
bring it back to the dock, man.
If memory serves, he tells Brody, I have to see if the hull is breached.
Oh, okay.
And that's why he went down.
Okay.
I can't offer an explanation as to why that's important.
Why he needs to check that.
Maybe it affects them
How they
like,
tow it or something
towing
like
it
that?
back in.
Yeah.
That's a
'Cause,
possibility.
yeah, maybe if the hull is breached, like they have to tow it a special way, or they have to, compensate for that.
Sure.
Because but that was like the one line of dialogue that was offered is he says, I have to see if the hull is breached.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I guess maybe it's one of those things where it's not spoon feeding you the information.
For sure.
But I think that would have, I don't know. That was the one scene in this movie where I wanted to yell at the screen, the
Right.
thing that we talk about, and I'm like, just don't do that. That's a terrible idea. You're
Yeah.
gonna get eaten.
And I think that's a good. I have thoughts on that as well, where it's a good example to kind of highlight some of the weaknesses of the characters, specifically Hooper and Quint, is their ego, their pride, the need to be right. I think that definitely played part into Hooper wanting to be like, well, we can see it, but like I want to see it. I want to know and have that be validated for me to have what I'm saying be the truth. And so. Yeah, anyway, just kind of segueing into that also played a part into a lot of the reason why towards the end of the movie they don't have a boat anymore is because everybody's like, well, I know how to do it and I know what's best and yada yada. This is my boat. So definitely that's something where they work well together as a team in some aspects, but certainly the ego and the need to be right and to be the one that kills the shark is definitely a weakness for that party that's going out to kill the shark.
Oh yeah. And again, like to the brilliance of the movie, every character has faults.
For sure.
So even our three main characters that we're very much rooting for, they have stuff that's not great. I mean, I think the big thing with Brody is obviously he's moved to Amity from New York, and his whole thing.
Guy.
Yeah, basically, like, his whole thing is he wants to live life in the slow lane now. And I think that's, like, his biggest problem in the movie is he's very much kind of willing to take a back seat to people.
Yeah.
And really, like, things only go his way when he finally, like, stops for a second and is like, no, you know what? Like, I got to take charge of this. I got to handle business. And so, like... There's that. Hooper very obviously has an ego and he needs to be the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah.
And Shaw is just on a revenge mission.
Yeah, he's
like,
the Ahab.
Yeah, exactly. Like he'll go crazy and to do what he needs to do, and he's gonna do it his way. He won't be told how to do it.
Yeah.
And so I think each of them has that weakness exploited in one way or another throughout.
Yeah.
And an interesting weakness too is Brody is scared of water.
He's aquaphobic.
Like
yeah.
that's kind of, and they don't play with that too much, I guess, but that is another weakness where he's like, I don't know, his main opponent is in the water. He's scared of water.
You don't see him in the water until the final act of the movie.
Yeah.
And by that point,
he has no choice. The boat is gone.
Yeah. So it doesn't really play into it, but it is, I guess, another weakness that he has.
Absolutely. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. And obviously we're talking about like the final three guys as the main characters.
Yeah.
But we have to acknowledge the fact that one of them does in fact die.
Yeah.
So it's not like comparing the three of us to those three is a 1-to-1, like we all survive. Like again, they do their best, they're smart, they pivot, but they make mistakes. They mess up here and there, and one of them pays the price.
Yeah,
very nearly two of them. I mean,
Yeah.
I think Haueter escapes by like pure luck.
Yeah, pretty much. The shark just thought it got him, or just didn't want to continue pursuing him, and he hid.
Yeah, he hides for like the final bit of the movie, and it decides to go tear up the boat instead of going after him, which is interesting.
And that's interesting. Maybe it's the ego of the shark.
Maybe.
It's like that's the big thing. It's like this big. It needs to get the boat, and it could have gotten another victim.
Sure. Yeah.
So maybe the shark has the ego too.
Yeah. And that's
Give me that boat. Give me that rudder. Give me that rudder.
Fine ass rubber. Rudder.
Give me.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point, because it's not like, it's not like Haueter can really hide in the water from a shark.
Yeah,
like,
he's kinda,
it knows you're
Not
there
forever.
He kind of just gave up on him.
So yeah, and so that's interesting as well with the shark. It acts abnormally, and I mean, I don't mean to know the psychology of the shark, but it's like it probably doesn't know the difference between like, well, it probably does in some senses, but like seeing the boat is probably like, oh, that's the larger enemy.
Yeah.
That in some way is allowing these other land monkeys to be able to shoot me with harpoons.
Land monkeys.
So I need to attack that to get them in the water. So
Yeah, the shark is like the unstoppable force, and it's.
Well, but also, does the shark still have the barrels attached to it at that point?
I don't believe so. When it's getting to Quint, because you don't see the you don't see like the harpoons in its body anymore or anything like that.
Because there's a time where they put it on the ship and then the things break.
Yeah.
Does that release? Well, no.
Yeah, it feels like at some point it no longer has the barrels on it. I'm not sure when that happens.
Sure.
But that could have contributed, because Quint said like with 3 barrels it can't go deep for that long.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, that probably was what was going through Hooper's head, is he thought, this thing can't get very deep right now, so I just got to go deep.
If he had the barrels, that would be a smart thought.
I don't remember if the shark had the barrels at that point or not, but that could have been a factor in that decision, and that could have been why the shark didn't go after him, is it just physically couldn't.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, so we've talked about the shark, we've talked about our characters.
Yeah.
And now sort of comes the critical moment where we start to look at things and say, could we do things differently, and would it matter? So let's get down to the medal ceremony at this Olympics. And let's go around the horn. Let's start with Adam. Let's just start with final boy status. What do you think? Do you think you can get to like a Quint position where you do pretty well, but just a couple things go wrong and you're shark chum?
Well, I feel like this movie is interesting where it kind of has the two, like there's the land decisions where they're making decisions on the land to prevent loss of life, and then there's in the boat killing the shark. And I feel like I almost have to answer it in 2 different segments to be true to the movie. I feel like on the land, I obviously would fare a lot better because I'm on the land and I'm not going to die, but I feel like some of the decisions, for example, if I was like in the mayor's position, I would like to think, I've never been a mayor or a politician, again, average Joe here, so I have to just be self-aware of that, but I think I would if there's a shark eating people, I'd been like, let's close the beach. Let's get someone to kill that. That's not the right shark. Let's go find the right shark.
Right.
Like, let's get this taken care of as fast as possible so we can open up and we can feel safe. And so I feel like just to bunch all those characters together, because they're all with that quandary, I would say I would make that decision quicker and would have safety in mind first. When it comes to the boat stuff, if it gets to that point and I'm on the boat and I'm pretty dead in the water.
Yeah.
I ain't a sailor. I've been on a boat in the lake once, and I don't know. I can swim, so that's going
That
for
helps,
me.
yeah.
for sure.
But honestly, when it comes to doing the harpoons and I don't know, the decisions they make with the barrel and the mouth and the gun and everything along the way, man, I there's no way I could have done that. And so I feel like even achieving Quint status is not great. I think I would have died probably sooner than final. So I don't think I'd have made final boy status. I feel like I would have died earlier on if I was in the boat.
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. I think for me, just looking at it from that perspective of like land decisions, like the dimension of being on land versus being in the ocean, I think, I'd be with Adam if I were in the position to make the decisions of closing the beach. I would, it's better. I don't know. Just in my mind, it's better to, be totally 100% sure and to have a scientist be like, yep, that's the right shark. And we can open up its belly. Yep, those are the people.
There's the kid. That's it.
So I think in that I would survive. And then on the ocean, I think I would have to be the Brody in that situation and have like two seasoned sailors be on the ship with me for me to be able to do that. So if I'm that character, I think that because Brody isn't really a seafaring guy at all, so.
Yeah. He's scared of boats and water.
Yeah, so
just kind of following orders.
Right,
That's
exactly. So I think if it was that dynamic, I would survive. As far as Quint, I feel like that's just really. Obviously there are decisions made with like the engine blowing up and putting too much pressure on the engine and making some poor decisions with the attachments to the boat and the barrels and all that good stuff. But if we're getting down to it, I feel like with Quint, it's just ultimately just bad luck,
Yeah.
Where it's like, if you're Hooper, you were fortunate. If you're Brody, you're fortunate. But man, you just had that barrel roll over your hand. You couldn't keep a grip and you slid right down into the shark. So yeah, that's hard for me. So I think I could make it to Quint status at least. But I'm not so sure that I make it to Brody's status with making it all the way.
Fair enough. Yeah. I feel like for me personally, like you do have to put this into two different categories. Like if I'm a landlubber over here, which I am, me as I am, I wouldn't go anywhere near the third act of this movie.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even go near the beach. I wouldn't be like, oh, Shark Beach, let's go check it out. I really like sharks, and I probably know a little more about them than like the average person.
Sure.
But at the same time, I really don't think I have like the fascination or the know-how to be like, yeah, I should be on that boat.
Right.
Hand to hand, I could hold my own.
Yeah, hand to hand against this shark. I'm gonna throw some hands.
Krav Maga.
I just barely remembered there was a TikTok that somebody sent me. I feel like I showed it to Lance, and I don't think I showed it to you, Adam. But somebody like recreated like that scene where Quint dies.
Yeah.
But they swapped the shark and the guy. So it's a guy coming out of the water and just beating the crap out of a shark on top of a boat. I just suddenly had that image pop up in my head, and it was so funny. Yeah, this guy like comes like just like shooting out of the water, and the shark is like scared. No! Guy just lands on top of it, is just wailing on it. Sorry, random tangent.
Yeah.
So like on one hand, I don't think I'd go near the boat. I'd be like, I'm not qualified to do any of this.
Yeah.
having me on board is actually a liability. I
Right.
shouldn't be here. I don't have any interesting ideas to bring to the table.
Yeah.
But say if I was on the boat, again, if I was in like Brody's shoes, I think I could make a lot of the same decisions he makes, at least, where it's like I put things in Hooper's hands and in Quint's hands, but as soon as I have to make my own decision, like I could imagine looking at the tank and being like, "Hey, you know what? Sharks eat whatever go in their mouth. Let me just toss that at the mouth, shoot at it."
Yeah.
I feel like I could make that decision, but again, like that's a lot of, 2 seasoned shark experts are on the boat with
Right.
me, which is not a given.
Yeah.
So final boy status, I'm gonna say yeah, I could probably get there, because I guess final boy status is at least just ending up on the boat and dying there.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd avoid the beaches. I'd be fine through like the first 2 acts of this movie, but yeah, act 3, if I got on the boat, I would probably die.
Yeah.
So I mean that transitions in, and we'll go just like backwards this time.
Yeah.
Final girl status, I can't give it to myself for this movie.
Yeah.
The people who do survive are incredibly smart, incredibly capable, and get incredibly lucky.
Yep.
And yeah, it's a force of nature. It really is. It's not, you can't outsmart it. You can't overpower it. You just have to do your best.
Yeah.
And me personally, I don't see a version of this movie where I'm like all good.
Yeah.
I think this movie ends very poorly for me. So final boy status, I'll say that I can get there, but final girl status, I will not give myself that.
Right. Okay. So I don't think I'm making final girl status, but the shark is definitely not going to live, and let me tell you why. So,
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
here's what's going to happen. So when we're in that moment, when the boat is tipped, and the shark
Forgot that was the
is
name
right.
of the boat. Sorry,
I know,
Orca.
right? Yeah. And the shark is just at the end, and you're just sliding down. I'm pulling out my Monster Energy drink. I'm shotgunning that. And then I kept Hooper's poison in my other pocket. I'm down in that. And I'm going down the slip and slide with needle in hand. So I'm going right into the gullet, and I'm also taking the needle, so it's going through the side of the shark. So either way, like me poking it or him just eating me, he's dying. I'm poisoning him. So I'm going to
sacrifice.
I'm going to yeet myself to save Amity is what I'm going to say is how it's going to happen.
What a power move.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm going down. You're going down with me, man.
I'm not making it. No, I'm not making it. I mean, I said I wouldn't make final boy status. I'm not making final girl status. I feel like there were moments in this movie where like he's holding the rope and it gets out of his hands and it gives him a rope burn, or when the rope ties around his legs and it like smushes him.
You made like, you had a visceral reaction to that. Like that happened and you were like, oh,
That's
like,
just like, if that happened to me, I'd be like, I'm gonna get
Adios.
under the bunker and pretend nothing of this is happening. Like it's kind of dumb to say. Maybe I'm not giving myself enough credit, but honestly, like those would have been like, the guys in this movie are just kind of like, shake it off. We got a greater. But to me, like, I don't know, I'm kind of a wimp when it comes to pain, and I feel like I wouldn't be able to take it enough. I wouldn't even be like, even if we were just sailing somewhere, not even fighting a shark, I don't know if I would have done it. I don't know if I would have survived. I'd have been like, all right, take me back to land. I'm done.
just being in the ocean at all, I'll probably die.
Yeah, just on a boat.
Oh man. Well, I mean, there it is. Kind of mixed answers for Final Boy, but right across the table, none of us got Final Girl status.
Nope.
It's a tough one to beat.
Hey, testament to like a good movie though. Like a good horror
absolutely.
movie is, you're like, yeah, those deaths are kind of inevitable in a way.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I mean, yeah. So let's get into some pluggy plugs. Adam, I know you have stuff going on. Would you like to tell the audience about it?
Yeah, I just want to plug Stacy's mom. Always has it going on. But also, I've got a show.
How often do you plug Stacy's mom? Just for my own point of reference.
It's as often as I can.
Nice. Okay.
I get it.
Usually
you gotta
Friday
find
and
the
Saturday.
time.
Yeah.
Friday and Saturday. Heck yeah, when you don't have school.
Yeah, like 3 to 5, I make my way over there.
After I finish mowing her lawn.
Yeah. Yep. Also, I'm in. Less importantly, I'm in a D&D show. If Dungeons and Dragons is your thing, it's definitely my thing. I love it. It's called Worlds Beyond. It's the first season of it. Luke is the producer, one of the producers.
Around, yeah.
And a bunch of my friends are in it. We have a really good time. We got, I can't think of the name without thinking It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. The sun always sets in the west is the name of it.
Yeah, the name of this campaign, yeah.
And it's a really good time. And so if you like D&D, or you just like my personality and Luke's knowledge and what do you call it? Fantasy. That's not the right word. Imagination is the word I'm looking for. Then tune in because both of those things will be at play.
Heck yeah.
You can find us on YouTube.
Yeah.
Where can you find us?
It'll
YouTube.
be on YouTube.
Worlds Beyond.
Yeah, I don't have a plug, but I think I would be remiss not to quote Tracy Jordan and to give a shout out to the audience. Live every week like it's Shark Week.
Hey, that's the good stuff. I thought you were gonna do the Eric Andre show thing of like, want to give a quick shout out to Christina Applegate.
Her too. Hey man, like if you're watching this, I don't know.
Is her daughter named Stacy?
I don't know.
That would be amazing.
That would, incredible.
That would check a lot of boxes.
You can just text me if you're chill with that. You got my number. I've commented on all your social media, my number, so just make sure to pass that my way, and then I'll pass that information to Adam. So there you go.
Thanks.
Hey, good stuff. Man, this might be the first time in the history of the podcast that I don't have anything to plug.
Well,
because let's see, when is this coming out? July 30th. I won't have much going on at that point in time. Yeah, I mean, check out Worlds Beyond. Adam's in it. He's fantastic. He's really funny, and he's giving like a really fantastic performance as well. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Luke Haueter, LukeHaueter, and yeah, I think that's it for me. So we gotta bring it to a close. Is there anything you want to say to the boys and girls out there in Amity before we shut it down?
What is next episode? Let's tease the next movie. So if you're following along, you can watch it in between.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Do you need the schedule pulled up?
I actually have the schedule right here.
Oh, heck
Do
yeah.
you need the schedule?
I do.
I
don't
do.
know what the next
Both of
movie
us need the
is.
schedule.
I know what it is.
Tell us.
So kind of fun thing about how we operated this season is everybody we each chose the movies in kind of rotation. This is Adam's movie.
Fetch. Yeah, it's going to be the Babadook.
Heck yeah.
Definitely a personal. It's a movie with personal significance to me in my development of horror movies. So I'm excited to talk about it. So definitely check it out before next time. And you can follow along and give us your thoughts on social media or just shout them out to the rooftops and we'll hear you.
Oh yeah, you can find us Underqualified Idiocracy Media on Facebook and Instagram, and at Idiocracy on Twitter if you're trying to track us down. Underqualifiedidiots@gmail.com if you want to just email us. But yeah, you can find us. We're not hard to find. We're
Let us
around.
know. If you have any movie suggestions or rude comments, we will take either.
Hey, rude boys out there, get in the comments. Let us know what you think, what you hate.
Be rude.
Not even about the show, just about stuff you hate. If you want to complain about your grandmother, like we'll listen for a finite amount of time.
Luke will listen. That's his job.
That's his department.
It's like, oh, we got a grandma story. Here you go, Luke.
Another one.
I'm only just now realizing that this is my job, and I'm full of regret. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and catch us next time. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Sleep tight.
Don't let those sharks bite.
Oh, no.
Great whites bite.
Oh, man.
This has been an Underqualified Idiocracy media production, produced by Lanson Lappin, Adam Bone, and Luke Haueter. Theme music for the episode was written by Rachel Robison. You can hear more of Rachel's music at rachelrobinsonmusic.com. You can also find her on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by searching at Robison. Artwork for the YouTube version of this podcast was created by Trinity Rodriguez. You can follow her on Twitter by searching at InstrinBaby to see more of her work. This podcast was recorded in underqualified studios and edited by Luke Haueter, with special thanks to Mike Fuchs for providing audio assistance. The illustrious voice acting providing the intro and outro of this episode is Shane Alvey of the Paradox Files voice acting. You can explore more of his work on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by searching at The Paradox Files.